looked directly at me. There was a moment of eye contact. She put her head back and said, "Oh, it's that guy," and then like chuckled and looked at her friend. Well, the play of light and dark and the intersections of shadow are dancing, and history is moving along at a wild clip. It's been, I guess, a couple weeks since Charlie Kirk got assassinated, and it feels like so much has changed. It feels like we've entered some sort of new era, and before this Charlie Kirk tragedy gripped everyone's attention and held it firmly. You know, the previous two examples of sensational violence were this really unfortunate incident with the Ukrainian girl that got stabbed on the subway, and the son of a mixed martial arts champion who almost beat to death a pro wrestler. But particularly the Raja Jackson case just evaporated, and everyone quickly forgot about it. It seems like in the last week or two, quietly, while this Charlie Kirk thing was the focus in many people's minds and hearts, Raja got caught up with by the legal system and will probably go to jail for a number of years. I wish the Jackson family luck in managing this, in facing it. We'll see how it unfolds. In that incident with Raja, there was, thankfully, a rare man, a man named Doug Mallow, who was a contemporary, another pro wrestler in that organization who happened to be at that show. And Doug was the one guy, that rare guy. I think these kind of men are rarer than ever, and it's really unfortunate. We need to inspire the kind of motivated bravery that Doug Mallow showed by essentially, after over 20 strikes, Doug jumped in and pulled Raj off and probably saved Psycho Stu's life. And so in the aftermath, as Doug was sort of doing the rounds and going on podcasts and talking on various spots that he was given about the event, he spoke about something that I want to kind of make the focus of this video. And it's about toxic compassion. It's about gaslighting. It's about avoidance and essentially lies, and how careful we have to be to walk in truth, to embody these masculine qualities that anybody can embody and display and represent, but are particularly important in the masculine world, and that's courage and honesty. And these days, everybody's got an angle, everybody's trying to manage their optics, the surface of things, everybody's trying to manage that, and just being courageous and telling the truth is it's often in short supply. And so Doug was talking about wanting to give the family and Psycho Stu's really close friends some space while Psycho Stu was recovering and getting back on his feet, figuratively and literally. And that in general, Psycho Stu Psycho Stu lost teeth, he swallowed blood, he got knocked out, he's having memory problems, and hopefully, you know, the speaking and walking difficulty that Psycho Stu was having immediately after the incident abates, and hopefully Psycho Stu makes a full recovery. But there was a recommendation by a professional, or maybe multiple professionals, that was given to Doug if Doug spoke to Psycho Stu. And I've encountered this in my own life, and I think it's a really dangerous thing. It's the kind of thing that the father of lies would love for friends and family to do, to get that dirty, nasty, evil work done for him. And so the recommendation was, because of the head trauma and the memory gaps, to not be honest with Psycho Stu, to not just lay the truth out and explain all the details of what Psycho Stu went through. And I think on the surface, it's a compassionate act, right? It's to not inflame Psycho Stu's trauma, to not put him into a state of confusion and depression about what happened. And again, on the surface that makes sense, but really underneath the surface, and you don't have to dig that far to see it and maybe feel it, it's toxic compassion, especially the people around you, your friends, close friends, your family. It's so important that we are honest with each other, and that particularly the men in people's lives step forward and risk upsetting people by displaying bravery or courage and honesty. And just tell it like it is. Cut the bullshit and be honest about what has happened. And this seems to be a philosophy. I think it's maybe a more modern philosophy, but something that I've encountered in my own life with psychology, counseling, psychotherapy, that I just think it's, again, it's on the surface it seems compassionate, but underneath that it's irresponsible, it's cowardly, it's just not healthy. It's not healthy. And so in my life, I've spoken about this on my channel before. My mom had dementia. I helped her for the last 7-ish years of her life to figure that out with my father and other family members. And at a certain point, maybe halfway through that period that she was still around, my mom passed away in 2020. And at a certain point, we were trying to figure out how to transition my mom from her home that she was living in to a long-term care facility. And we were lucky in a lot of ways to connect with a government representative. This woman was kind of, in a way, she had the similar kind of spirit to Doug. This representative stepped out from the crowd, went above and beyond her responsibilities, and really was so supportive, answered so many questions, gave us so much context, connected so many dots. We had a flood, disaster that kind of sped the whole process up to get my mom into the long-term care facility. And this representative, this woman, she was an angel. She probably helped us cut the wait time by 80 or 90% to get my mom into this facility. And it was needed. We didn't know what we were going to do, waiting years, and it turned into just a few months. So this woman had the best intentions, was very skilled at her job, but she was operating under this probably more modern philosophy that tells people to gaslight those that are in need, those that you're trying to care for. And the suggestion was that we take my mom, when we had the permission, the okay, to transition her into the long-term care facility, to take her to the common room with a big table and say we were just going out for lunch with the family, take her there, bring some food, have some lunch, and essentially just sort of slowly we could each sort of like leave and make up some excuse, and then eventually there'd be a few people left and say, oh, we'll be back, and essentially just obfuscate, just lie and twist the truth and gaslight my mom until there was no one else there, and she was waiting for us to come back. And the idea was that it was kinder for her because she had these cognitive limitations. It was hard for her to grasp certain concepts, and this, not being able to live in her home is a big challenging concept. This was suggested to me and to my father in a meeting, and we had a number of months to kind of contemplate how we were going to explain to my mom this transition. And I was very challenged. My mom was the most authentic and honest person, a woman, but she embodied honesty as much as anybody else I've met. She was fiercely authentic and honest, and she instilled that in me. She taught me that. And I just didn't think that I could lie to her. It was a really big internal conflict, a question of the strength of my spirit, And in the end, eventually she landed in the long-term care facility. A few months in, after she was settled, she started asking about that other place that she used to be, the place that she used to live, and she was having trouble, forming her question. But I knew that she meant her home that she lived in for many years. And so at that point, I told her the truth. I told her that she had a disease that affected her memory and her ability to understand things, and that we couldn't care for her at her home. We couldn't help her, and for her own good, that she needed to be moved to the place that she was at the time that I was speaking to her. She brought it up a number of times after that, and every time it was tough. I got choked up. I'm pretty emotional talking about it right now, but I told her the truth. I was bravely honest with her. I wasn't brutal, but I was straight with her. And I just think that this is really important these days when there's so many pressures to frame things and gaslight and worry about how things appear, and even just the sort of the sick feminine energy that has been gripping our culture for a decade or two. This is an aspect of femininity that likes to avoid conflict, that will lie and obscure and avoid in order to keep things calm, in order to not get into some fight or upset someone. And that's the sick feminine part. Now, there are many positive feminine virtues, but this is the negative aspect. And it's very common. It's not okay. It's not okay. And this government representative had the best intentions and was skilled at her job, but this was her training. And I think particularly men, if you are in someone's life, it doesn't have to be right away. You want to wait. In Psycho Stu's case, maybe while you don't know if he's going to survive, if he's at death's door, you might wait a day, you might wait a week. But it's really important that men in people's lives step forward at a certain point. It doesn't have to be out in the open. You don't have to be brutal with it, but tell the truth and cut the bullshit. It takes bravery, especially if you care for someone, because you wouldn't want to see them confused and upset. But it's so important. It's one of the functions that masculinity has served throughout all of history. And in my own case, aside from this experience with my mom and this recommendation from this professional, I've had sort of a few versions of this where, and I've spoken about it on this channel, I get recognized on the street, right? It doesn't happen all the time, but it's happened so many times over the years. Maybe started, I don't know, it's hard to pinpoint, 2019, but people recognize me. It's really obvious. It's undeniable. Now, since soon after I moved into the house that I'm in, which is my mom's house, 2016 into 2017, I've been in the park at the top of the street doing exercises that will gain people's attention, I suppose. And I've seen a number of people at times notice that and watch. I've seen a handful of people take out their phone and record what I was doing. And I don't know. I've never seen anything online. So, another manifestation, another example of this recognition, most recent, happened a couple days ago. I was walking down the street, just around the corner, top of my street, and a couple of young ladies were walking towards me. We were crossing paths. There was no one else for a block or two in either direction. And just within 6 feet of me, well, one of them, the closest one to me, looked directly at me. There was a moment of eye contact. She put her head back and said, "Oh, it's that guy," and then chuckled and looked at her friend, and they kind of had a sort of eye-rolling chuckle moment. And it's like I've had some version of that reaction so many times where it's clear. I mean, you can feel when people look at you, and I can hear some of the things that people have said, and it's really difficult. It's undeniable. And rationally, there's clear, easy explanations that some footage, maybe combined with some of the gossip, who knows, I don't know, has somehow gotten out there, because it happens not just in my neighborhood, it happens in the city at large. And I can deal with being out there, I can deal with people recognizing me, even if it's something upsetting or embarrassing or something. I just want to know what that is. But getting this kind of attention without context, it is torture. And it seems like there's three possibilities, rationally, with the people around me. I've spoke to a sibling, I've spoken to the woman that I dated for about 10 years during all this difficult stuff with the end of my parents' life and my own health challenges. I've spoken to friends as well about this recognition. And so one possibility is that it's some post somewhere and no one's seen it. They don't know. It does seem like most of the people that recognize me are younger, maybe in their 20s or below that. So maybe it's on a service like TikTok or some other similar kind of video sharing app that mostly young people use. And so maybe no one that I know access this kind of stuff. And I got some sort of recognition through that avenue. And then the other possibility is that, I mean, I have a YouTube channel, right? I've put some poetry out online under the handle No More Funland in YouTube comment sections. That was a project that I had for a number of years. I don't really do that much anymore, but that possibly could have got some attention. Again, I don't know. I didn't check any responses for that poetry project. But it's possible that some people think it's like they're aware of what the source is and think it's some sort of act, or I'm lying, or it's this kind of thing that people do, this sort of, you know, social media caricature thing that people will undergo, where people are sort of like putting things on and creating this story. And I mean, that's upsetting that someone wouldn't just call you out, because that's another form of dishonesty, is when you think that someone's bullshitting or lying or pulling a fast one in some kind of way, and you avoid talking about it, and you don't just call them out. Because if you really care about someone, you should just be straight with them, even if it's upsetting, and say, I think you're full of shit. You know, I saw this thing, and, you know, it clearly seems like you're aware of it or doing it or something like that. Um, but again, there is this pressure to avoid, to not just blatantly reveal the truth. We live in compromised, sick, evil times, and it's harder than ever to stay true, to fight the good fight, and to do the difficult things, even if it upsets people. And then I guess the third possibility is that it's this toxic compassion recommendation that I'm talking about. This compassionate trickster bullshit. It's bullshit. And I think it's more of a kind of a modern recommendation, a modern philosophy that points to how biased a lot of the mental health care fields are towards men, right? A lot of it is skewed towards female ways of operating, female emotional expressions, female approaches to solving problems and facing challenges. And so I don't know what it is. I don't know what the recognition is. All I can do is keep courageously telling the truth about what I'm going through. I mean, I'm lucky I'm not trying to talking about like a Bigfoot encounter or like an alien abduction or something that's more far out. Like, this is very mundane. This is something that's pretty easy to understand, you know, especially since I've actually seen people record me before. But the way that people don't want to engage and take it seriously and make up endless excuses and gaslight it's disturbing. But, you know, if you're a man and you encounter something that's upsetting, whether it's some embarrassing video or something on social media, a nasty post that some people have made about someone that you know, you got to step forward. Or someone's been in a disaster, you got to step forward. You got to tell the truth. Maybe not immediately after it happens, but as soon as possible. This is an important function that men serve in society. And if you need some mental health support, I would just suggest that you're very, very careful about doing research and vetting the representative that you choose to provide you with that kind of counseling or therapy or, you know, psychological support, because there is so many really unbalanced approaches to helping people with their mental health. And it's one of the reasons that in a lot of sort of like male-centric communities these days, therapy is seen as a scam because it's hostile towards men and doesn't reward a lot of important male virtues, doesn't embody them either, and often sort of takes the side of anybody, whether it's a person born a woman or a person that embodies female energy and is a little more like timid or easily upsettable. It doesn't defend masculine energy. And I wish anybody out there that's struggling with some horrible part of your life that you find that somewhat rare representative that loves men, that respects masculinity, that is willing to stand up for what men are, who they are, and how they operate. But like I said, just be careful. And whatever you do, don't gaslight. The father of lies would love for you to be one of his agents. And it's up to you to fight the good fight. It's hard, takes courage, but I know you can do it. And I'll talk to you guys soon.